This video is going to be about working area operations. So there's a lot of information in your FWOP and your FTIs about how the areas work. So I'd just like to cover a couple of the basic things. So first problem I see students have a lot is when we go to area 1, then you're not quite sure how to do it. So you're going to do your departure out of Whiting, and then you are going to be heading out your 270 until you get to Point Ensley. Then once you get to Point Ensley, you will call approach, you'll cancel your radar advisories, they'll tell you to squawk VFR, frequency change approved. So you'll change your squawk to 1200, and then the frequency change approved means you can start bringing up your area 1 frequency. So you'll pull up channel 8, and then you can start clearing the area. So if you want North Point clear, which goes from I-10 down to Point clear, you can see it's labeled there as well. Just sound off anyone working North Point clear, anyone working South Point clear, anyone working Weeks to Oyster Bay, or so on and so forth. Once you find an area that has no one working in it that you want to take, you can fly directly to that area. Okay, now here's a caveat with that. If you go, we'll stick with this example of North Point clear, and you're going to fly towards Point clear. We have I-10 right here, and that's another area. So you can transit through other people's working areas. We also have Highway 59 right here, and it goes, so that's 59 north right there. And you can transit through these areas. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is you have to clear them, okay? So you have to make sure no one is working I-10 or no one is working Highway 59 North, or that you deconflict with them as well. So if someone's working I-10, 59 North, maybe you need to come up and around before you head down over to Point Clear, okay? Additionally, common things I see as well are we have your MOA boundaries right here as well, right? So pretty sloppily drawn, but that's okay for our purposes. And it's broken up into its rows, and then A, B, C, and D. Okay. So things to keep in mind when you're descending out of these MOA blocks as well are if you're going to descend into someone else's area 1 block, make sure you clear it. There's very heavy traffic in the south there, so make sure you're clearing nonetheless. Also, if you're in some of these other blocks over here, 1 Charlie, something like that, make sure that you do not descend into Pensacola or Sherman's airfield's airspace, okay? So make sure you get away from those before you start your descent through the 4,200 feet that's listed there, okay? Now, if we are in the north, we have a somewhat different scenario. Up in the north, we have the North MOA, we have the Pelican below that, and then we also have the Fox as well. So you guys are generally pretty familiar with the Pelican and the North MOA, so I just want to take a second and talk about the Fox. Okay, so the Fox is all the way over on this western edge here, and the Fox goes from 1,000 to 5,000 feet. Okay, it's used for formation flights. And how this would be 1 alpha, 2 alpha, 3 alpha, and 4 alpha. That's not quite how it works with the Fox. So the Fox is generally broken up into 2 blocks. So you have the north block and you have the south block of the Fox. Okay? So this is Fox, this is north, and this is south. And then the numbers are associated with the altitude. So if someone says they're working Fox 3 north, that means they are working at 3,500 feet and the North Fox block. Same thing for Fox 4 North would be 4,500, Fox 2 North 2,500, and the same goes for the South. So that's some confusion I see often with students as well in the Fox. Additionally, if you'll notice the Fox, it overlaps into Evergreen's airspace some. So if you are coming up the initial for runway 10 at Evergreen, you can potentially penetrate Fox's airspace, okay? Again, that is fine as long as you make sure that you clear the airspace, okay? So, you know, anyone working Fox North, okay? If someone's working it, get their altitude and determine how you can deconflict to make sure that that doesn't become an issue. Other big things I see with students up in the north are just descending right through other people's Pelican blocks, okay? So what Pelican blocks don't exist? All right, we've got 4 Charlie and we have 1 Bravo. There's no Pelican block there, okay? And that's because of Evergreen's airspace and the departure corridor out of North Whiting. Okay, so there's no blocks there. So you can descend through those. However, descending through 1 Bravo, probably not the best idea because you'll be descending right onto Evergreen in that case, okay? Again, you can descend through a Pelican block from the North MOA, but you have to make sure that you clear the block below you. Otherwise, you can do something like level off in the transition layer and find an empty block that you can then descend through. Or you can level off in the transition layer, get to a boundary, so a lateral boundary, and exit there and come on. That's probably not generally going to be your best choice. Or you can descend on a line, right? But clearing the block below you is going to be critically important, okay, for safety reasons. Now, I also like to teach a little acronym for getting out of your MOA blocks, your Pelican blocks, whichever you have. And I call it the A-Don't checklist. I call it the A-Don't checklist. I didn't invent it, but it stands for ATIS, descent, check, ops, check, next, bingo, TCAS to below, and then transmit. Okay, so now what does that mean? ATIS, what runway are we going to be landing on? Okay, so call up Evergreen. We'll just stick with Evergreen in this case, you know, Evergreen landing. Okay, Evergreen does have an ATIS or AWOS as well. You can go ahead, pick that up, get the altimeter setting too. Okay, so knowing where you're going, knowing the duty runway ATIS. Descent check. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. If we are in the Pelican, or if we don't go above, if we don't do any aerobatic maneuvers, we may not need a descent check. Or I'm sorry, if we don't go above 10,000 feet, we're probably not going to. Sorry. I'm getting a little twisted up with my words here. If we do any aerobatic maneuvers, then we're going to need to make sure that we get that descent check in. Ops checks, this is just a good time to get an ops check and want to get them every 15-20 minutes in flight. It's a good time to do it before we transition to the pattern. Next, bingo. Make sure you set in your next bingo into your flight computer. Otherwise, you don't want it going off, getting that bingo while you're in the break or something like that, trying to fly the aircraft while resetting your bingo. TCAS to below, we're going to be descending. Get your TCAS to below just so you can see that traffic down there. And then finally transmit. So call up, clear any blocks below you, call up Jack Center to descend down, make any calls you need to do at that time. Additionally, when we're descending out of a block, we probably don't need to be hanging out at the top of the block doing 250 knots, anything like that. Just hang out near the bottom, you know, 1,500 feet above, get nice and slow, 150 or 200 knots, whatever's more comfortable for you. That way when we call and we're ready to descend, we can just drop right down and we are good and we're not wasting time in our descent. And that's about all I have for working area operations. Come see me if you have any additional questions.